Buongiorno e benvenuti. My name is Giovanna and I welcome you to my kitchen on the cliff. Today we're going to make a very festive Easter bread with colored eggs right on top. It is festive, beautiful, and delicious. Easter is a very, very important holiday in Italy, and there are remarkable foods associated with it. This is a delicious bread. It's fun. Children, of course, love it. My grandmother, in fact, used to make a doll. I can't say that I remember the actual, what it looked like, but I remember that every Easter she would make a special bread for me and one for my brother. So you make these for the children, you make them for the adults, everybody enjoys them. This recipe is from my book, Sicilian Feasts, and it's to be found on page 37. So let's begin. We have a dough hook on the KitchenAid. We're going to measure 6 cups of flour, okay? Always level the flour on top because you want to be able to reproduce your recipes. 2. To that we're going to add 1/4 cup of sugar. We're adding that. Now we're going to add the yeast. This is instant yeast and it's good for sweet as well as savory doughs. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons. I like this yeast particularly because it gets mixed with the dry ingredients, not with the liquids. And so it doesn't require proofing, and it works very, very well every time. Okay, now we're going to add 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. We're going to add 4 eggs. Always crack your egg on a flat surface. The tendency is to try to do it on the edge of something. The problem with that is that sometimes eggshell gets into the food. Now I'm adding a teaspoonful of salt, and lastly we're going to add the water. Now we have 1.5 cups of water measured, but I'm going to add only part of it. Now I just want to be sure that we need it all. So we'll do that. This is a rich egg dough. It's delicious. It's got sugar, but not too much. So it's just a perfect sweet bread. Okay, it's absorbed the water, so I'm going to add a little bit more. It's better to do this in stages because you can't take it out if you add too much. Well, you could see that the dough is forming on the dough hook. I'm going to dust my surface with flour. So I've let the dough absorb a little bit more flour, okay? We shape it into a ball. We put a drop of oil on top to keep it moist so it doesn't form a crust. And we're going to cover it. The dough is rising, and now we're going to have fun coloring the eggs. So if you have any children, gather them up now. First, we're going to drop the tablets, the color tablets, in each glass. Okay, we're going to drop a tablespoonful of vinegar in each glass. Oh, this is exciting. You don't have to be a child. Okay, wow, it's very intense color. I'm going to stir. Look, 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 one is making a big bubble. That's gas in there. Well, it's like being in a chemistry lab, right? 1/2 cup of room temperature water. Now we're going to put the eggs in. Never drop an egg because all you have to do is drop it 1 millimeter and the egg is cracked. We learned that the hard way when I was teaching pysanky eggs in my art class, and one of the students had spent a week decorating that egg, and then he dropped it into a dish and it cracked. Okay, the directions in the box called for 1/2 cup of water, but with 1/2 cup of water the egg is not submerged. And that means that you get a spot of white, which we don't want. So we're adding a little bit more water. You hear that? That's the egg that has dried up inside, completely dehydrated, and this is the outside. Now this is Japanese, and the detail in this is absolutely amazing. These are Ukrainian Easter eggs. These are pysanky eggs. It's an ancient technique that is absolutely marvelous. You use real eggs. You don't hard boil them. They have to be fresh eggs. This is one that I made. It's the only one I have because I made them for people and I would make them and give them away. So what you did was you decorated with a stylus that was filled with melted wax, and then you would put it into dye. So in this case, the first color was yellow and the second color was red. So the yellow mixed with the red to make an orange. They're very beautiful, very delicate. Now this is very old. I don't know how many years ago I made it. And this one is very interesting. This one somebody gave me. And the way this was done is equally fascinating. They took a parsley leaf, they put it on the surface of the egg, and then they wrapped it in a nylon stocking. Some of you don't know what nylon stockings are, but they were stockings. And you wrap it in the stocking very tightly, and you put it into the dye. So wherever the parsley was, the dye didn't penetrate. Now this was a natural dye. This was made with onions, red onions. And this is the color you would get. You would get this beautiful rich brown. Let's see the results. Here's our beautiful yellow. Look at that, robin blue. There is all kinds of lore around pysanky eggs. The years when there aren't enough people making pysanky eggs, there are disasters. The devil gets into everybody's hair. Anyway, it is a beautiful, beautiful traditional craft. When I taught at the Bronx High School of Science, I had an elective art class. So it was slightly smaller than the other classes, and I was able to do, special projects. So we did this one time, and we spent 2 weeks actually doing pysanky eggs. And one of the boys had made a spectacular one. I mean, the lines were all perfect and absolutely gorgeous. The last thing you have to do with this is, when you're all finished, it's all black because you're painting with melted wax, and the melted wax is black. And so the very last thing you have to do is hold the egg close to a flame, close to a candle. I don't know how we did this in the 70s. Probably today I wouldn't be allowed to do such a thing. Anyway, you held the egg close to the flame, and it heated up, melted the wax, and you would polish it off with a napkin or something. So when the student was finished taking off all the wax and revealing this magnificent design on the egg, he went to put it down on the table. But if you put down an egg on a table, you have to put it down and then let it go. You can't drop it, even a hair, because if you drop it even a hair, it cracks. So it cracked, and I was the one who had to tell him that the egg had cracked after 2 weeks of work. So anyway, we saved the day because what I did was I emptied the egg. I put a hole on one side and a slightly bigger hole on the other side, and I blew it out. You blow through the pinhole, and the egg comes out through the larger hole. So at least he could keep it. He kept it, and he could show it off. But when we heard that little noise of the crack, everybody held their breath. That's what happens. In art, you have to be very careful because sometimes you could just ruin whatever you've spent a lot of time working. We have our beautiful eggs, we have our dough, and now we're ready to shape our bread. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, we're going to make the wreath first. We divide it into 3. We're going to dust the table with a little flour. We are going to make a rope. Okay, when you're trying to stretch dough, it's best to do it one after the other. While this rests, it'll be easier to stretch. Okay, this has rested a minute or so, and now we can continue. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to do all at once. You know, if you put flour on the bench, it slips. If you don't put flour on the bench, it sticks. So you have a choice, slipping or sticking. I'm going to stretch it this way. The longer you make them, the bigger the wreath will be. So it's worth spending a little time. And now we'll start doing the braiding. So you have 3 ropes. You take one and you cross it over between the other 2. Now you take one on the other side and you put it between the other 2. Okay? You have 3 ropes, right and left, always ending up in the middle of the other 2. So now I'm going to turn it around and wrap it a little bit better on this side. So, well, don't look at it, because here you have to go underneath instead of on top. See? Same thing, but I'm going underneath instead of on top. Okay, now we're going to make a circle. This is my greased pan. Just continue the braid in whichever way you started it. Okay, and now we're going to connect it, connect the 2 ends. And now we have fun with the eggs. So we'll start with this gorgeous one. I'm going to kind of cradle it between 2 pieces of the braid. Just open it up a little bit. Put the egg in. Oh, look at this one. Oh, I forgot to do something. We want to glaze it with beaten egg to make it shiny. Normally, of course, I would do this before putting the eggs, but I forgot. Okay, so now we'll put the eggs back. Oh, how beautiful. Well, this is a little bit of gilding the lily, but why not? It doesn't get more festive than this. Oh, how beautiful. I changed my mind. It's not gilding the lily. It's quite nice. I'm putting this in the oven at 375 for 50 minutes. So now let's make a different one. This is one that my grandmother used to make, especially for me. She called it in Sicilian pupo con l'uovo. Pupo means like a marionette, a doll. That's kind of cute. A little doll. Okay, here, we're making a twist. Well, that's a little wreath. We'll put a really bright egg in there. Oh, and then she used to do something like this. My grandmother was very inventive, very creative. So she would just make these shapes and then give them to the children. Okay, this is a basket. Let me see if there's room in the oven. Thank you so much for watching. Now you know how to make this wonderful, festive, colorful, fun Easter bread. Gather up the children to dye the eggs and then make the breads. I'm going to show you now how we like to serve them. This is essentially a bread. It's not a cake, but it's a rich bread. It's a sweet bread. So perfect for breakfast. This is like Easter morning breakfast. And we always serve it with butter and jam. You could put butter and jam on top, and you can also have an egg, and that's a perfect breakfast. Buon appetito. Well, everybody has to have a treat. You're such a good girl. This is very good.
Sweeter than most breads. And it's perfect with just plain old butter and or preserves. We hope you're already a subscriber, but if you aren't, don't forget to subscribe.
Now, how can you resist an invitation like that from Howard? So, do subscribe. And our best friend is joining us for some fun.
We hope to see you again soon.
Ciao, alla prossima volta. Ciao.
Ciao.